What's up, everybody? This is Johnny English with another video. I know it's been a while. It's a long story. I just had back surgery back at the end of December, and I've been recovering. And I've got about another 3 months or so before I can go back to work full time. Now that I'm finally able to actually sit at my desk for longer than 5 minutes, those of you that have had back surgery in the past, you know that even sitting is almost impossible for long periods of time. So now I'm able to actually start doing things again and being able to sit and walk around and well, I've been able to walk the whole time, but being able to actually get out and do stuff has been a chore. So glad to be able to do these videos again and get back into it. I really need to anyway, even if it's just for my mental health. Those of you that had it done, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I wanted to do this. I kind of made this discovery just by pure accident, watching some other videos. And of course, the age-old argument, JPEG versus RAW. You know, it's been something that's been going on for a very long time. You have people arguing about it, still argue about it for some dumb reason, even though with today's technology, especially with mirrorless cameras, it's easier now than ever to shoot in JPEG and be able to get the same, sometimes better results. You know, and it depends on your application. You have to understand that there are going to be times when shooting RAW is best. There are going to be times when you can get away with shooting JPEG to get the same results, or results that people aren't going to know. It's not going to be that noticeable because, and let me give you an example. A majority of pro sports shooters are shooting in JPEG because they have to send those files off right away to the media. And they upload them quickly. And of course, JPEG is going to be a much smaller file, and it's going to be able to be sent quickly and easily to the publication to get it out there on the internet or wherever quickly, fast. So in that situation, shooting sports, and that's what this whole thing is about, is I shoot motorsports. I shot motorsports last year, and there were times when I was shooting 4,000 to 7,000 images at one time. Not at one time, but you know what I mean, over a 10, 11, 12-hour period at the track. So I would spend hours, days sometimes, because of my regular job. I didn't have time to sit in front of the computer for, several hours at a time, especially if I shot on Sunday. I wouldn't be able to get through all the images till Wednesday, Thursday. So I think shooting in JPEG would have been much easier, faster, simpler. You know what I mean? So, but I was always afraid because I listened to guys like Jared Polin talk about you only shoot RAW. If you're a pro, you only shoot RAW, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got guys on the other side of that, like Ken Rockwell, who only shoots JPEG. And I think him and Jared got into it, a while back. Even though they may respect each other, they did have an argument about JPEG versus RAW. Now with Fujifilm, obviously I shoot Fujifilm now, Fuji X only. And with Fujifilm, we have, I think, an advantage over other camera manufacturers. You've got so much you can do inside of a Fujifilm camera before it even reaches your editing software. You can film recipes. You've got film simulations. There's so many different things that we can do as Fujifilm shooters to get those images out there. And Fujifilm JPEGs are awesome. The colors, everything about them are just awesome. And you have pretty much you have complete control. You can adjust sharpness, clarity. Clarity you don't want to use unless you don't need to shoot fast. Obviously, clarity will slow your slow writing to the card, greatly. It tremendously. So clarity you don't want to really use unless you're shooting landscape or portraits and you're not in a hurry and you don't have to shoot fast. But everything else, sharpness, there's just so many different things you can include in your JPEG files and bake them right in, and where you don't want to mess with them, in editing. So the point is, I kind of discovered this, and I know it's always been there, but I'm, a little slow to discover some things. So what I did was I did a little short test inside of my room here, and the images that I have right now, these are 3200 ISO, and I shot with I believe the Sigma 56 1.4, 1/800th of a second. And what I wanted to do was see if I apply noise reduction in camera and only noise reduction, I haven't messed with anything else. I didn't mess with colors. I didn't mess with, I was shooting in nostalgic neg. And I just wanted to see. I wanted to see if I could get usable images. You know, if the noise reduction in camera would work better for me, if I could get my colors dialed in and my sharpness dialed in camera when I go out to the track and I shoot 3, 4, 5,000 images, it would just greatly reduce my editing time in post. This would also apply if you shoot basketball, football, any other sports, and you're shooting thousands of images. Now, if you're shooting portraits, landscapes, even weddings to an extent, you probably want to keep shooting in RAW, because then you can go in and change your white balance. You could change a lot of different things and make things just the way you want it to make them. But as far as shooting sports and things like that, it's going to go right to the internet, right to newspapers, magazines, whatever. Shooting in JPEG is just fine. And actually, what I discovered was when I exported these images, I discovered that the file sizes were bigger on the straight out of camera JPEGs than the noise reduced RAW images. Because obviously, when you reduce noise in an image, you are actually taking detail away as well. You're taking parts of that image, pixels out of the image. So the file sizes were actually smaller. I also discovered inherently they're sharper. The JPEG straight out of camera were sharper after I reduced the noise. And here I'm gonna kind of show you this. So here I have these two images, 3200 ISO and 56 millimeters at 1.4 1/800th of a second. I've got a couple different examples here that I did, because it does depend. I did find that it does depend on lighting as well. So these photos I had my overhead light on as well as the side light. And from just looking at them, here, I'll just look at them individually. So here is the straight out of image or straight out of camera JPEG. It looks just fine. If you zoom in, whatever, it looks just fine. You could post this on the internet, Instagram, whatever. It's going to look great. Great image, right? So you get the raw image. Even the raw image, though, still looks fine, even with the noise. Because if you're posting this on the internet, nobody's really going to tell. So both images are just fine. So and that's 3200 ISO, y'all. I mean, it's amazing. It depends on your lighting situation. So anyway, so let's get back to what I was doing before. So I'm going to make sure that I have the right image, reference image. So the JPEG is on the left. The raw image is on the right, and you can tell by the noise. Look at the noise. My noise is at +3. Noise reduction in camera +3 on the left, and on the right, no noise has been. Obviously, the raw file doesn't get touched. When you set those settings inside for JPEG, they don't apply to your raw images. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the noise in Lightroom to match the straight out of camera. So we're going to go ahead. I have it. Let's see. I'm going to turn sharpening off too. So we're going to go bump the noise reduction up and try to match. Now, right away, I can tell that it's starting to blur more. I don't think I'll be able to match exactly. It's going to be close. So we'll leave it at about 30. 30 is pretty close. It's pretty close. So let's look at what it did to the letters. Now, if you noticed right away, the raw image was a little sharper. You could actually see more of the texture of the camera. But now that I've reduced the noise levels to match up here, if you notice that now, not so much. It's closer together. It's still sharper on the JPEG, straight out of camera JPEG on the left. I think personally, you can see the textures better. I just think it's a sharper image still. And even if you look at the out of focus, the hot shoe up here, you can see, I think it's a little bit better. Obviously, it shouldn't really matter that much. Let's go down here to the lens mount. And same thing, it's a little more detailed on the straight out of camera JPEG. Now, this is just applying noise reduction. Obviously, you can sharpen up this raw image. Let's boost sharpening back up to 40 where it was at, because that's, kind of the default that they set it at. It does help a little bit. And you can go even further by applying your masking. 80 is usually about the standard of what I use on masking. So when you even applying that though, it's still, I think, more detail over here on the straight out of camera. I think there's still more detail. Now you can go in and tweak it a little bit. There's obviously things you could do, uh, adjusting the detail, the radius, and it's still, I think personally, the straight out of camera noise reduction is better. I think personally, that's just my opinion. I urge you to do this test yourself. Obviously on YouTube, you're not going to be able to tell, as good. But the whole, and again, the whole point of this is reducing your workflow, getting through your images faster, getting them out there to the public faster. So let's go to the next little test I did. What I did was I turned the overhead light off, and I'm going to use the last two images. And this is at 6400 ISO. So we're going to go jump into here. Let me get the right reference photo. So looking at it right away with lower light and higher ISO, we have a little bit different story. This is the raw image right out. On the right is still the raw. On the left is the straight out of camera JPEG. Right away, there's little weird spots, like just little things around, each letter and the lines and everything. You've got these little weird things, little issues with the lighting. If we go over here to the can, it's the same thing with the can. Just little weird things on the JPEG, straight out of camera JPEG. Now, I think if I bumped up, I'm still at +3 on my noise reduction in camera. So maybe if I bumped it up to +4, it might help get rid of those little weird things around the edges. It's just around the edges. So if you see just little things around the edges, but I did a little tweaking, and you can actually get rid of that. But anyway, but we're trying to reduce our workflow. We're trying to get through this as fast as possible. Now over here, you can see, obviously there is, oh, I'm on the wrong image. My bad. So now you can see the raw image on the right, way more noise. But the interesting thing to me is I'm also around the edge of the can. It's just got those little weird things. It's rough. It's not nearly as clean. Over here on the raw file, it's a cleaner image, even though there's a lot of noise. So let's reduce the noise. We'll have to do a lot more noise reduction to match, because we're at 6400 ISO. So that's pretty close. We're at 67. Let's go bump it up to 70. So 70 on the noise reduction. Even at 70, it's probably a little bit cleaner, but you can still see the edge is more prominent than it is here on the JPEG image. Now, if we take the JPEG image, we can actually clean up the JPEG image. We can get rid of those artifacts. Artifacts is the dang word I was trying to remember. I don't know why I couldn't. So you can apply the noise reduction, even more noise reduction, to the JPEG image, which is why I'm thinking if I had the JPEG image bumped up to +4, it probably would have taken care of that. But now you can see the artifacts are gone. So even see the lines, it's not quite gone on the black lines and stuff. So we could probably bump that up a little bit more. And we would obviously have to get into adjusting the detail. And even you could even apply some sharpening if you wanted to. You could even sharpen that up, and get rid of all those little artifacts. And now it looks just fine. So I think if you bumped sharpening and bumped up noise reduction to +4, it would probably do the trick. I probably should have done that test. But anyway, so back here with the raw image on the right and the straight out of JPEG on the left, I still think, notice how the letters are a little blurry. Even with sharpening applied, even if we bump sharpening up to, we'd have to go up to 100. And now you've got the worms. So now well, no, actually we can reduce that too. I forgot to do the masking. We'll bump masking up to 85. We'll do detail, bump that up to about 55. Radius, you don't want to get crazy with the radius. We'll leave that kind of right there. You have to do a lot of tweaking to get the raw image as clean as the reference image, the straight out of camera JPEG. Even though we can, we did clean this up a little bit, but it didn't take much. And I still think in camera, it's going to make a difference. If I bump that noise reduction up to +4 and added sharpening, which I actually did on this next one. Went to the next one where overhead light is back on. So let's go to, make sure I'm using the correct reference image. Different lens. This is the 18-50 Sigma at f2.8 at back down to 3200 ISO, and I'm shooting 1/80th of a second. One thing I notice about this lens, look at the fringing. Yuck. The fringing's kind of bad. It's easily fixed because all you got to do is bump a slider, and it does take all that purple away. It all goes away. So before you guys start freaking out in the comments about, like, oh my God, look at the fringing. I know, trust me. It bugged the crap out of me too. So let me get the raw image on the right. So here's the raw image. I think I need to reset it. Yeah. So now it's reset. So 3200 ISO. Yeah, there's a lot of noise there. It's not that bad though. Again, look at the difference though, straight out of camera. Let me go to just the images by themselves. So that's the raw file. Here's the JPEG. Look at the noise. There's, no noise there. It's all nicely blurred out. But then we go to the raw file, look at all the noise. Yes, so a lot of noise. It depends on the lighting situation. So you need to have some kind of ambient light well lit. So like if you're shooting in a gym, yes, the lighting is going to be bad, but it won't be as bad as not having light at all or having one light. Let's go back to reference. Again, make sure I've got the right image selected. So one thing you can tell too, look at the difference in the white balance in the lighting. It is a little bit different. It seems the raw image is got a little bit more contrast. So again, you can adjust that in camera. So once you get your in camera settings done, you'll have your image coming out looking like this. You're straight out of camera. You just have to tweak it. Yeah, you just have to experiment. But all I did was bumped up sharpness, or bumped up noise reduction. That's all I did. I didn't, actually, this one actually was bumped up. Sharpness is bumped up to +2 on the one on the left, and noise reduction is at +3. And then you have the raw image, obviously, that has, let me take sharpening down. So it has no noise reduction. So let's try to reduce the noise, the ambient noise, I guess you could call it. We'll reduce it down and try to get it as close as possible. So let's get it. That's pretty close. Probably about 70. That's pretty close. I think that's pretty close. Yeah, that's pretty good. So we're going to go back and look. Now the detail, you've got a lot less detail over here. You still see the little specks. There was another part in this too. But anyway, you can see around the edges. Look around the edges of the letters right here. You follow the little hand. It is a little more prominent than over here. It kind of just blurred them right out. Now, again, we can apply sharpening. We'll bump that up. We'll bump it up to, let's just go up to 50. If I can never hit these right away. So 50, masking. We'll leave it at 81. We'll do detail. A little bit, adjust that radius, right about there. So even with all of that adjusted, it's still not as sharp as far as the edges go. It's still not as sharp as the straight out of camera JPEG. And you can see it's just, it just isn't quite as sharp. Now let's go down here to the lens mount, and you can really see it in the lens mount. straight out of camera definitely has more detail than the raw image that has been sharpened and noise reduction in Lightroom. Now let's go, is it in there? Yeah, let's go to manual. Let's get rid of this fringing. This fringing is driving me insane. So see that? All I had to do was bump up to 3 and all the purple fringing is gone. But still, we just don't have the detail, and it's very slight. Again, this is very slight. This is blown. This is zoomed in. If you zoom out, you're going to see the same thing. You're just, if you're wanting to print though, and you want the detail, obviously you're going to shoot the raw, and you're going to go in, you're going to tweak it. You can take it into AI software, and you can do all this crap to it to make it so much better. But the point is, if you're shooting sports, let me adjust the fringing. You can also adjust the fringing on the JPEG. Here's the JPEG. Same thing. And now even with the fringing, it shows you even more detail around the letters. You can see the edge of the letters. You know, it's kind of embossed a little bit on Fujifilm cameras. You can see it. It's better. It's just better. So you can still adjust JPEG images. I don't know. I was always afraid to, but you can still adjust JPEG images. I don't know what we've been afraid of all this time. And then go back to your profile. And so now I just think there's more detail over here. You can make the raw image with more, the same amount of detail and probably a little more by using AI software and by tweaking this even more. Colors, white balance, there's so many things you can do. But with a JPEG, just remember everything is baked in. You don't have the choice. See up here, the profile, all you have is color profile. When you're on the raw, you can go in and actually change your film simulations right here in Lightroom. So you can try different ones if you wanted to. So that's one of the things you have to keep in mind. Once these are baked in on your JPEG image, see that? You just have your color profile, but you can still adjust everything else. You can still do your sharpening. You can do tone curves. You can do your color grading. Everything is still available to you to adjust. Don't be afraid to adjust your JPEG images. You can still do it. You do have more leeway with a raw image, but you can still do pretty well with a JPEG image. So again, if you're shooting sports, you're shooting thousands of photos at one time, even weddings, if you get your film simulation dialed in, you get your recipe dialed in, exactly the look that you want, you could probably get away with shooting just JPEG at a wedding, because you're going to be shooting 2, 3, 4, 5,000 images at a big wedding. Same thing as sports. You know what I mean? You just have to have everything. Make sure you're good. Go out and test. Make sure that you have it set perfectly before you do this. But otherwise, shooting raw. If you want to shoot in raw, shoot in JPEG. If you want to shoot in JPEG, I'm just showing you that you can shoot in JPEG and get just as clean an image with noise reduction baked in than you can shooting raw. And I wish I'd have known this last year when I was shooting at the racetrack, because I could have saved myself hours and days of editing. So that's pretty much it. Again, you guys can, I strongly suggest you do these tests yourself. Do the test yourself. Go out and shoot and adjust all the little settings in your JPEG settings in your camera. Get them right, and you'll save yourself a ton of time. Thanks for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll have more coming up here pretty soon, hopefully. I've got all kinds of time to do these videos now. So that's pretty much it. RAW versus JPEG. The argument lives on. Not one person is going to stop that. Not me, not anybody. So have a great day. We'll catch you again real soon.